Welcome to the Online Success Journey podcast, your opportunity to discover and learn from entrepreneurs like yourself. This is not your typical podcast, but a place where you can get the real story and find out how real people encounter speed bumps and detours, but journey through to find success. Now here's your host for the Online Success Journey podcast, Patience.
Welcome to the Online Success Journey podcast. This is episode 395. Make sure you click to subscribe right now so you'll never miss a journey. I post one episode each week and each guest has a fascinating story to tell. Joining us today is Olly Richards. Olly is involved in multiple successful education companies and an investor, mentor, advisor, but his passion is still teaching and working with others. His newsletter focuses especially on helping six-figure business owners make the leap to 7+ figures and beyond. Hello, Olly.
Hello, thank you so much for having me on the podcast.
Thank you for coming on the show. My audience are excited to hear your story. Just start by telling us one thing we are going to learn from you today.
Well, I hope that what I'm going to be able to tell people about is a realistic view of what it takes to build a successful business. Because I think online you hear so many claims and stories and things. One of the things that I like to do is talk about what it really takes. Because my business is 10 years old and it's taken me 10 years to grow what I have. So hopefully some realism come through my lips today.
Wow. I can't wait to hear more about that. Let's get started with the basics. Can you tell my audience a little bit about your background and how you started your business?
Absolutely. So my business is StoryLearning.com. That's my main business. It's a language learning business where we teach people languages. And I got started mostly because I always enjoyed learning languages myself. When I was in my 20s, I learned 5 or 6 languages. I've been very lucky to live in different places in the world. I've lived in South America, in Brazil and Argentina. I spent almost 4 years in Japan. I lived in Qatar. I lived in Egypt. And now I live back in the UK. But I'd always enjoyed learning languages. And when I was living in Qatar, I was a bit bored with my work, and I needed some kind of creative outlet. That's how I think about it now. And so I started a blog, and that blog on WordPress was the very beginning of what would later become StoryLearning.
Wow. What a background, Olly. But why do you do what you do?
So I started it because for 2 reasons. Firstly, because I love languages and language learning. That's what I've always done. That's my passion, my hobby. And I'm a teacher. I used to teach music. I used to teach English. I've always enjoyed teaching what I know. And so for me to teach other people how to learn languages, it was just the most natural thing really for me to do. And great thing about the internet is that it enabled me to do this. And, back in 2013, these were still the early days really of, building a personal brand online. And so it was just the perfect situation for me really to start to do that.
Wow. Then how did you turn your blog into money-making machine?
So at the heart, what a blog does is it allows you to build an audience. And you can do this in many different ways. You can do it on YouTube. You can do it on a podcast. You're doing this right now with Online Success Journey. And a blog is a way to build an audience. I think a lot of the time people don't necessarily understand that. They think it's just a place to publish articles, but it's not. A blog is a place to build a following of people who want to hear from you. And so that's what I did. I kept publishing on the blog. I kept building my audience. And, after a couple of years of blogging, I had 20, 30,000 people a month coming to my website. And then later I started to realize, hang on, I can make courses to help people learn. I'm supposed to be teaching people languages here. It makes a lot of sense to create a language course. And so I started making courses. And over time, my audience grew. The number of products I had grew. And that eventually turned into, a substantial business.
Did you have any challenges during this time?
Yes, about 10 million challenges at different points. I mean, so many different. I mean, when you grow your business, you have to learn so many different skills, and nobody teaches you what these skills are. So, for example, when you start to hire people, you have to learn how to advertise for roles, how to find the right person, how to onboard them, how to motivate them, how to keep how to have everyone aligned so everyone's rowing in the same direction. And literally every part of this and everything like this, I had to learn the hard way. I think the most difficult challenge, really, when I look back at the early days, was knowing what to do to grow, because I think everyone understands what it means to start a YouTube channel or start a blog or start a podcast. Most people understand what it means to make a product. But once you've got those things, and then you start to ask yourself, right, how can we grow even more? Then you have a knowledge deficit and you don't know what to do next. And now after 10 years, I can look back and I know exactly what to do to grow a business at different stages. But at the time, I had no idea. And so, it's quite a lonely place to be when you have a small business and you don't know what to do to grow it. And so I think it's that knowledge deficit that is most difficult, because when you don't know what to do, you just can't take action, right? Or you take action on the wrong things.
And what helped you through it?
It's a good question. So I've always invested quite heavily in education. So I've always read books. I've always gone to, I've listened to podcasts like yours. I've always gone to masterminds. More recently, I've hired coaches and mentors to help me to give their advice. So I think being open to learning is a really, really big part of it. But that alone, I think, is not enough, because everyone listening to this now understands how important it is to keep learning. I think that a couple of things. First of all, being willing to try new things quickly has been very important. So, I've failed far more times than I've succeeded. Many more things haven't worked than have worked. And so when I look back, I think it's thanks to having failed many times that I've discovered the things that have worked. So I think it's very important to have this willingness to try lots of things quickly without getting too hung up on the outcome, because that behavior then will lead you towards finding the things that do work eventually. But the other thing is, to be honest, is playing for time, because time solves so many problems. And the thing that feels like a big challenge right now, a year from now won't be. You will have found the solution. And so from a very 30,000 foot view perspective, I think it's very, very helpful to run your business in such a way that it stays healthy. So keeping big profit margins, holding on to reserves of cash so that you're never making decisions from a place of scarcity, not over hiring to increase your cost base, not making decisions that tie you into a specific course of action. I've always been quite conservative and cautious in the way that I've built my business, and that's helped me go for a long time, to be honest. It's helped me keep going and helped me learn lessons in my own time.
Wow. How many things should we try and we fail until we just I think I better move on to something new?
That's such a good question. And I think, so in my case, I think I always look for green shoots. I look for signs that something is working. And no one can really tell you, sometimes you can work on, take YouTube, for example. YouTube is something where it takes a good 2 years to get traction on YouTube. But once you get that traction, you can grow very, very quickly. Now, for a lot of people, they might try YouTube for 1 year and say, I've spent 1 year on YouTube and I still haven't got that traction. And so it can be easy to give up. But in reality, all they need to do is keep going, and then they will eventually have this combination of skills come together and have a critical mass of audience, and then it can get very big very quickly. So it's always possible that there are new things around the corner, but equally there are things that just don't work. So for example, recently I have shut down quite a few different parts of my business because I took the decision that I just didn't see enough. Even though they were working, I didn't see enough long-term benefit, long-term upside. I asked myself, what happens if we keep this going for the next 3 years? Like, what's the best case scenario? And I just couldn't see it. So I decided to shut it down. And so I'm looking for signs of progress, green shoots, any kind of signal that this thing can continue to grow. And as long as I see those things, then I want to keep it going.
So if someone is starting a blog today, a podcast, or a YouTube channel, what advice would you give them?
So there's a couple of things. First of all, the most important thing is you have to educate yourself about how to do it the right way. The worst thing is to do it in the dark and be blind to the things that we know work. It's so easy to try to feel like you have to figure everything out by yourself. But if I was starting a podcast today, I would go and take 2, 3, 4 courses on podcasting and learn from different people what works and what best practice looks like, because you don't want to be starting from a place of poor knowledge, right? You want to be educated and prepared from a knowledge perspective before you start. That's number one. Number two, I think you've got to commit to something for a minimum period of time. I mean, a great marketer called Noah Kagan gives the advice that you should commit to 100 of the thing that you are doing. So if you're starting a podcast, do at least 100 podcasts before you start to question if it's the right thing. So for example, on YouTube, you could say, well, do at least 100 YouTube videos and then decide. I would say, like, do something for at least 2 years before you decide. And you might discover that you really hate the thing, and so you want to give up, and that's true. If you hate something, then you should absolutely stop. I think there's no point. Life's too short to do things that we hate. But if you're enjoying it and you feel like you're learning, you feel like you're making progress, then I think I would say to commit to something for at least 100 episodes or videos or whatever, or around 2 years, because that's generally the time when good things start to happen. If you quit before that, you simply haven't given yourself enough time to really see the results.
Thank you. Olly, tell us how to brand and position ourselves to attract our ideal customers.
Wow, yeah. So that's a very, 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 very big question. Here's how I think about it. Let me give you an example with StoryLearning. So with StoryLearning, we teach languages, and there's lots of very big people in the language learning industry. You have Duolingo, you have Rosetta Stone, big companies that everyone has heard about. So what I think with my business is, okay, I have to have a very clear differentiator in my branding and positioning in order to stand out. Because if you don't stand out, if you're not different, then people won't pay attention. So with StoryLearning, it's very simple. We say, we teach you languages through stories. That's how we learn. If you learn with us, I don't know what you're going to learn with anyone else, but if you learn with us, you're going to learn Spanish, Japanese, French, Chinese through stories. And so we differentiate ourselves with the method, stories, and that is in everything we do. So if you look at our YouTube videos, we're telling stories. Stories is in the name of the brand, StoryLearning. On our podcasts, it's a daily story. It's an episode of one long soap opera style story. Everything we do in the brand is around stories. And so people who get to know us then get to know us for using stories to learn languages. So it's something that stays in people's minds. And so the advice I give to people is to think about very clearly about how you can be different. So within your niche, what is something unique that you can do that nobody else is doing? And obviously that's different for lots of people. And sometimes it can take a long time to figure that out. With my business, StoryLearning, it took me about 4 or 5 years actually to really understand properly how to differentiate myself and to have the courage to actually double down on the concept of stories. So it can take time, but you have to work towards knowing what that is, knowing what makes you different, because that's ultimately what's going to help people remember who you are and want to work with you.
Let's put man aside. How do you know you are successful?
The interesting thing about success is that I think it's a moving target. And especially with money, I think a lot of people in the early days, they judge their success based on money. And, I remember when I was first starting, I thought, if I can only have a 6-figure business, I'll be happy. It became, if I can only have a 7-figure business, then I'll be happy. And then it was, if I can only have an 8-figure business, then I'll be happy. And the one thing I can tell you for sure is that always moves. It's a moving target, and money is, you will always change the way that you think about money. And however you think about success, I think it ultimately, even if you find yourself financially successful and you're making all the money you want, that doesn't make you happy. All that does is remove certain problems. And so really for all of us, we have to have our own definition of success. For me personally, what I want to be able to do is I want to be able to spend my time doing something I enjoy and that is worthwhile. So for me to teach people how to learn languages, that's great. It makes the world a better place. It helps people become the best version of themselves. For me, it's a great way to spend my life. But I don't want to do it for 12 hours a day. I want to be able to work, maybe 2-3 days a week. I want to have lots of free time to do other things. I want to have as much time as I want to spend with my family, and I want to have the freedom to explore different things in my life. So really, for me, I want to be able to do something that is fulfilling, that gives me the flexibility to do different things on different days, depending on what I want, to spend time with my family and have enough money to maintain that freedom. For me, that's what success means. But it's different for different people. What does it mean for you?
For me, success is all about having freedom to do what I love, spending time with my favorite people, helping others achieve their goals, and make sure my family is taken care of. Then everyone is happy. That is what success means.
That's wonderful, and I completely agree. I think that's a fantastic definition. And so, once you know what success is, then the next challenge is to then start to think about, right, well, what should I be doing in my business to actually, is my business aligned with my definition of success? And you might find that, you're working too much and that you're not able to spend that much time with your family, in which case you have to take some brave decisions and think, okay, well, maybe I need to make some changes because I'm not actually living in alignment with my definition of success.
Thank you. Tell my audience about the magic moment, the day it suddenly all went right for you.
I don't think I ever had that day, to be honest with you.
It was 10 years.
Yeah, but it wasn't sudden. I think, what I found is that, there was definitely a time when I could work less. There was definitely a time when I had more money. But what I found is that every time that's happened, it's just created a different set of challenges. And I don't think I've ever been in a situation where I thought, everything's perfect and I have no challenges. I think it's always a work in progress, and it's always, I always find myself kind of, discovering new things and finding new challenges and wanting new things in my life as well. I don't want, I'm 42. I don't want the same things that I wanted even 5 years ago, and so because what I want is changing, other things have to change as well.
What have you learned from business as a whole?
For me, I believe that entrepreneurship is a vehicle to become the best versions of ourselves, because we have to work on so many different things. We have to work on managing other people. We have to work on creating things. We have to work on managing ourselves. It's an incredible form of development. And so I think what I've learned from business is that we can make anything we want out of our lives that is available to us. And we just have to decide that that's what we want and work towards that.
Tell us how struggling scaling through different revenues.
What's so I work with lots of different entrepreneurs in different ways, and I have many different entrepreneur friends. What I found so interesting from meeting all these people is that the kind of struggles and difficulties that people have at different revenue levels are very, very predictable. So, for example, when someone's first getting started, the struggle is always, how do I make enough money just to survive? How do I make enough money to quit my job and do this thing full time? And that's usually because they simply don't have traction yet. They don't have an audience. They don't have any particular product market fit. And or maybe they're just not skilled enough yet at business to do things well. Once you get to a 6-figure revenue level, what typically happens then is that people want to grow. They want to keep growing faster. They feel, okay, I finally found some success. Now I want to keep going and keep growing. And so they start doing lots and lots and lots of new things, new content, new products, new staff. But actually the right thing to do at that stage is just to do more of the thing that they're already doing. So if you have a podcast, the right thing to do is to try and grow that podcast even more. You should not to add a YouTube channel or a blog, but just know, how can you 10x your podcast and focus on that? And so what often happens is that when you get entrepreneurs who get closer to 7 figures, what happens is that they have added all these extra things that they don't need, and their business is really complicated as a result, and that's causing problems. So then what they need to do is actually simplify the business, stop doing a bunch of things, so that they can continue to grow from there. And that happens to everybody. And then when entrepreneurs get to 7 figures and they want to grow to 8 figures, then it requires a completely different set of skills, because the gap between 7 and 8 figures is enormous. And so then they need to completely change aspects of their business. They need to learn how to acquire customers at scale. They need to have management team in place so that they can manage the complexity of the business. They need to understand how to look at finance in different ways, because you can't manage the business from your bank account anymore. You need to be able to look at your P&L and financial statements. An entrepreneur has to decide that they're ready to learn all of these things, because there is a lot to learn and it's a real challenge. You inevitably run up against that if you want to keep growing. So, there are more challenges, the more micro challenges that you can face along the way, but those ones that I've just talked through is what virtually everyone faces as they're growing.
Has the pandemic made it more difficult or easier?
We were very lucky as an online education business. When the pandemic hit, lots of people started learning online, and it normalized online learning. So we were in a very lucky position. There were lots of other businesses that weren't. I have friends in the travel sector, for example, whose business disappeared overnight, and it's very, very difficult. For us personally, we were very lucky. But for lots of people, it destroyed their business. So it was a very, very complicated moment.
What grounds you?
My family, honestly, because I think whatever happens in business, whether business is up or down, when I see my family in the evening, that is permanent, and I have a responsibility to look after them and to make things better for them. And that makes me grow up, and it makes me take a more serious, mature view on my business, because I realize that the business really it's just insignificant compared to family. And so it helps me remember what matters.
Thank you. Let's talk about your business and how can we join you?
You can find my language learning business at StoryLearning.com. That's where we teach languages. I also have a business newsletter where all the kind of things that we've been talking about today, I write about this. I send an email newsletter out every week. And you can find that at ollyrichards.co. And when you sign up to the newsletter, you also get it's a free case study that I've written. It's very big. It's about 118 pages. And it explains in great detail exactly how my language learning business works. So if you have an education business or an online business of any kind, really, it shows you exactly how the business works. And lots of people find this very useful because it's quite difficult to get an insight into how other established businesses run. So yeah, you can get that, you can read it, and hopefully you enjoy it. It's all free. And again, that's at ollyrichards.co.
There will be more from Olly in a moment. If you are encouraged by Olly's journey, please go to my website at onlinesuccessjourney.com, where you will find more amazing free content. Introducing the Podcast Mastery Interview Coaching course. Unleash your inner rockstar podcaster. Whether you are a beginner podcaster or a seasoned podcast guesting, this course is tailor-made for you. Imagine refining your interview skills, mastering the art of storytelling, practical exercises, monetization strategies, and community support. That's what the podcast Mastery Interview Coaching course is all about. Visit onlinesuccessjourney.com/coaching. Let's turn your podcasting dreams into reality, one interview at a time. That's onlinesuccessjourney.com/coaching. Remember, it's not just about the mic. It's about making an impact. Join us on this exciting journey. Now, Olly, I would love for you to share more with my audience, if you're up for it.
Of course.
Thank you. Do you watch movies or read books?
I do both. I watch movies when I'm tired, and I read books when I want to be inspired. It's interesting, just a quick thing. I was in Japan last week, and I was talking with a friend of mine, and it was quite funny what we noticed, because we noticed that every time we gave a reference, every time we were talking about something, that my friend would reference a movie, and every time that I was talking about something, I would reference a book. And he found that quite interesting. He said to me, "No, Olly, all of your references are books and all of my references are movies. So I have to read more." So I think, although I don't read as much as I would like to, I think I do read a good amount.
Thank you for sharing. Tell us, what is your favorite book that has some relevance to being an entrepreneur?
Oh, wow. There are so many. I think one of the books that had the most impact on me was The Surrender Experiment by Michael Singer. And here he talks about how he grew a $1 billion software company, huge publicly traded company, and had all kinds of amazing things happen, and also some very, very big problems. And he talked about how he stayed very calm and grounded during that time, using meditation and his mind as a way to move through the different problems that he had. So it's not really about business, but it's about how to cope with business. So, and I would recommend this book to absolutely everybody. The Surrender Experiment by Michael Singer.
If your business was down to its last $100, how would you invest it?
Wow. That's a very difficult question. Bottle of wine, maybe.
We need to do business, Olly.
with $100 left, I would maybe, I don't know, maybe a bottle of whiskey instead. I don't know. What would I do? I would think of somebody I know who would be able to help me. I would use that $100 to buy them a really nice gift, and I would go and see them and ask them to support in some way.
If you had a little note in your pocket, what would that be?
It would say, "You are not your thoughts. You are the one who hears them." You are not your thoughts. You are the one who hears them. And this comes directly from Michael Singer, who I mentioned earlier. And it's the idea that you can think things, you can have bad thoughts, but that is not you. You are just hearing those thoughts, or thinking those thoughts, or seeing those thoughts. And this phrase is something that I use a lot to remind myself that even if my brain is thinking strange things and difficult things, I don't have to relate them to me. I can understand that I am seeing those thoughts, but that's very different to who I actually am.
What is your next chapter?
So my next chapter actually is really what I'm doing right now with my newsletter, because my newsletter is still quite new. It's less than a year old. And I started this because I wanted to teach people. I wanted to take, the 10 years of knowledge 10 years of experience that I have growing my business, and help people to, with their own business. And it's a lot of fun. I'm really enjoying it. And so my next chapter has already started, but I plan on keeping it going for a very long time.
Will you ever stop?
Well, never say never. I think I would be unlikely to stop. I think I would slow down and do less. But the things that I do with my language business and with the newsletter at ollyrichards.co, I do both of these things because I love to do them. I've chosen these very deliberately. And so I think I would simply do less. If there were other priorities that came up in life, I think I would just do them less, but I wouldn't change what I do.
Wow. Do you feel like you succeeded, or like you're only on the way?
I'm only on the way. Objectively, I know that I've been very successful, and when it's interesting because when people say that to me, sometimes I meet people and say, "Oh, you've been so successful," but I don't identify with that at all because life is a journey, it's a work in progress, and like we were saying before, I have new struggles and troubles and thoughts and ambitions and ideas that come up all the time, and so I think it's very much a journey, and I'm sure when I'm 65, 70, 80, I'm going to be thinking new things as well. That seems to be what I do. I just think new things all the time.
Wow. As we come to the end of our interview together, what additional wisdom would you like to share with our listeners?
When I see people who are struggling with something or who haven't achieved what they want, almost always the reason is that they have a knowledge deficit. They don't know enough about the thing that they're trying to do. And so I would encourage everybody to really invest heavily in their education and learning, because when you know what you need to do next, then it's just down to you to execute on it. But the most dangerous place to be is a place of ignorance. And so consider what you want to achieve in your life, and then make sure that you educate yourself as much as possible about that thing.
Remind us how we can connect with you.
You can join my newsletter at ollyrichards.co. That's OLLYRICHARDS.co. You can join my newsletter, and there you'll get my very, very long case study about how my online business works.
Thank you. Olly, it's been great having you to share your online success journey with us.
Thank you very much. It's been great fun to talk to you.
You are welcome. Remember, success is a journey. Don't wait. Let's start the journey. Patience and Olly.
This is not the end of the journey. We hope you've enjoyed listening to Patience and her guest, and want you to know that there are hundreds of episodes available at onlinesuccessjourney.com. Patience would like to thank you for listening to the podcast, and she has a free gift for you on her website, including an audio compilation of her guests' best tips, uplifting stories, and even a bit of fun. Additionally, there are special clips of over 250 episodes that have never aired on the podcast and are only available to members of the Online Success Journey. Check the website and click on Join Now to get free and instant access. Of course, you know that listening to the journeys of others helps us each chart our own path. So make sure you're subscribed on the favorite platform you have to be notified as each new interview is posted. There are so many ways to stay connected to the Online Success Journey and listen in. And if you're enjoying the podcast, we appreciate your help in telling others. One of the best ways to share the benefit you get is to rate and review the podcast at Apple Podcasts and other sites. We appreciate your help and your willingness to share the journey. One last thing. If you're feeling a bit lost or overwhelmed on your own journey, Patience can help. Check out our coaching sessions on how to set goals and double your productivity while you're at the website. Working with Patience is a great way to get back on the right path. On behalf of Patience, and until next time, thanks once more for listening. It is our hope that this podcast will guide you on your own online success journey.